Under a question asking about the strength of one's first love, I saw my boyfriend's answer. The power of it is overwhelming. That's why I proposed to her sister, to be there for her as family. I am that sister. But surprisingly, I didn't feel as hurt as I imagined I would. Because the top-rated answer under that question was written by me. And I have a secret that I can't tell anyone. Chapter 1. The doorbell rang. Standing at the door was my boyfriend and fiancé, completely drunk. Last week, he proposed, and I accepted. Now, with bloodshot eyes and reeking of alcohol, he looked like he'd been crying. His friend was supporting him as he stumbled in. Sis, Christian's just really over the moon that he gets to marry you. Got emotional. Celebrated a bit too hard, I guess. His friend said. Thanks for bringing him back, I replied. As soon as the door closed, Christian pulled me close, hugging me tightly. Finally, I get to be family with you. After helping him lie down on the couch, I noticed his phone constantly pinging with likes and comments. Using his fingerprint, I unlocked his phone. I saw that he had answered a question on Quora. How powerful is the impact of your first love? His response, the power of it is overwhelming. At first, I started dating her younger sister just to have a reason to see her and call her sister. Now her sister loves me and treats me kindly. But I don't really love her, or maybe I don't even know if I love her at all. My first love will always be her older sister. No one can replace her. Proposing to her sister was my way of staying close. As family, to protect her. Chapter 2. I remembered the first time I introduced him to my sister. Even though I hadn't yet introduced her by name, he naturally greeted her. Hello, sister. I didn't think much of it at the time. Looking back now, I recall the surprise and shock on my sister's face and the deeply meaningful look on Christian's. The atmosphere then was beyond ambiguous. Chapter 3. Actually, Helen isn't my biological sister. She's my stepmother's daughter. She moved into our house when I just started high school. 1 year ahead of me. Dad adored her, with her mother in favor. Helen constantly competed with me, even stealing Dad's attention. We clashed whenever we were home together. It wasn't until we got older that our relationship improved a bit. On the surface, we appeared to get along, but there was still a quiet rivalry between us. Now it seems she's finally won. I ended up with a man she discarded. Yet this man is still deeply in love with her, considering her his first love. I suddenly recalled the tweet Christian posted after I accepted his proposal. I'll be your family and protect you always. Helen had commented under it. Congratulations to both of you. Seeing that response now, I realized it held another meaning. 90% of his answer on that post described how he couldn't move on after breaking up with her and how, one day, he saw that she had a younger sister, me, and that's when he began pursuing me. So that's how it was. Suddenly, Christian, lying on the couch, grabbed my wrist. Helen, don't leave me. I pulled away, expressionless. Christian didn't realize that he wasn't the only one who answered that question. The top-rated response, liked by over 20,000 people, was mine. But I wrote it casually and hadn't checked back since. This dream should have ended long ago. Christian was never really him. But I couldn't leave yet. I had unfinished business. Chapter 4. The next morning, when Christian woke up, I had prepared breakfast. But he hurried to put on his shoes and grab his car keys. Skipping breakfast altogether, I called after him. Weren't we going to look at wedding dresses this morning? He replied. This afternoon will work too. I have something to take care of. I didn't need to ask. I already knew who had messaged him. Years ago, my sister had married into a wealthy family as she'd always wanted. But her husband wasn't kind to her, leading a promiscuous life and often being violent. However, she loved money and appearances. So she endured, refusing to divorce him. This morning, she tweeted, feeling awful with this hangover. My head's killing me. I didn't need to think twice to know exactly who Christian was rushing off to check on. Chapter 5. That afternoon, Christian called, asking me to come downstairs. As I opened the car door, I found my sister sitting in the passenger seat. Christian said, I just ran into your sister downstairs, and she said she wanted to come along to help. There was an odd little cut on his lip. Helen's lips were also unusually red, her lipstick slightly smudged. She said, That's right. I'm here to help. I have a good eye for these things. I nodded calmly. Great. You have a lot of experience. Seeing my surprisingly calm reaction, she added, I get motion sickness. So sitting in the front is better for me. You don't mind, right? Before I could reply, Christian spoke first. Does it matter where you sit? It's all the same, right, Jessica? Yes. Midway through the drive, Helen suddenly said, Oh, I have some news to share. I got divorced. Christian slammed on the brakes, and I lurched forward. His voice was raspy. You got divorced? Helen gave a sly smile. Yes, I got divorced. I couldn't keep going and wanted a fresh start. Christian stared at her, his gaze lingering like in some drama. I finally had to interrupt. Waiting for something? Why aren't we moving? Chapter 6. The tension simmered in the car until we finally reached the bridal shop. I tried on the first dress, and as I stepped out of the fitting room, Christian was still talking to Helen, hardly noticing me until the salesperson complimented my look. Making him turn to see me, I smiled at him, holding his gaze. It looks beautiful, really beautiful. Let's go with this one. I clenched my fist. This one? Helen flipped her hair. Come on. That's so half-hearted. Try on some others. Just then, her ex-husband, Marco, stormed in. Marco grabbed her wrist, glaring at her furiously. You tricked me into signing the divorce papers last night while I was drunk. How dare you? Helen immediately hid behind Christian. You signed them yourself. Stop harassing me. Christian lunged forward, punching him twice. We're divorced. How dare you bother her again? Get lost. Her ex stumbled, landing near me, wearing heels. I lost my balance and fell, twisting my ankle sharply as pain shot through it. Christian grabbed Marco by the collar, pushing him out the door. Then he rushed back to Helen. Helen, are you okay? The salesperson helped me up, looking concerned. Mr. Christian, it seems MS. Lou sprained her ankle. He finally came over to me, but the next second, Helen fainted. Without hesitation, he turned back to her, lifting her up. Jessica, I'll take your sister to the hospital first. You keep trying on the dresses. Chapter 7. All right, but remember to come back. My ankle hurt a little, but once I stood, it wasn't too bad. I could still walk. The salesperson looked at me with a conflicted expression. MS. Lou, would you like to try on another dress? No, maybe another time. As expected, Christian never returned to the bridal shop. He told me to go home and rest, saying Helen was still weak and had to stay in the hospital, where he would look after her. Chapter 8. In the quiet of the night, I removed the phone case and took out a photo. Kevin, did you see it? I wore a wedding dress today, but the only response was the endless darkness. The next day, I drove alone to the cemetery on the outskirts. In front of Kevin's tombstone stood a couple and a young boy. I was a bit surprised. Excuse me, are you? The couple looked excited when they saw me. Kevin was our benefactor. You must be his girlfriend, right? I nodded blankly. Your boyfriend donated his corneas to our son. I don't know how to thank his family enough. Please, take this bank card. A wave of emotion hit me as I looked down at the boy with big, bright eyes. Tears filled my eyes. Little one. Is your name Christian? The boy nodded. Yes, sister. My name is Christian, so I had been wrong all along. The Christian I had known was never the one with Kevin's eyes. The couple continued talking, but I felt like I couldn't hear any of it. I smiled and patted the little boy's head. Christian, it's nice to meet you. Grow up strong. Chapter 9. The boy nodded and looked up at me. Sister, what kind of person was the big brother? He was a really cool and gentle person who would fiercely protect me from anyone who bullied me. The boy handed me his umbrella. Sister, don't be sad. This umbrella is for you. Big brother will always be protecting you from above. I patted his head. Thank you. I didn't take the bank card. After they left, I slowly squatted down, touching the picture on the tombstone. Kevin, would you be angry that I mistook someone else for you? The Christian I had found wasn't the Christian I was searching for. He was just someone unimportant. Just as I was thinking about how to meet him, he approached me first, and so we ended up together. Every time I looked into his eyes, I'd show my best self. But the moment he closed his eyes, I had no strength left to smile. Now, the obsession I'd held for so long disappeared in an instant. Christian called. Without thinking, I hung up. The wind howled around me, and the rain poured down. The man's outline on the tombstone was cold and stern, his dark lashes soft and drooping, his gaze tender and gentle. It was a photo I had taken of him, but when I took it, I never thought it would end up in black and white on a cold tombstone. Softly, I spoke to him. Kevin, when will you wear a suit for me to see? Do you think this might all be a dream? That I'll wake up tomorrow, and you'll be alive? If you can hear me, could you make the rain stop? Chapter 10. Just then, the raindrops began to lessen. The patter on the umbrella slowly faded. The rain stopped. The distant wind lifted my hair. It dried the tears at the corners of my eyes. So gentle, so very gentle. Strands of hair brushed against my cheek as if he were caressing my face. Don't cry. I'm right here with you. I suddenly remembered that summer when I was 17. That day, I had fought with my sister. She had moved things into my room without permission, taking it over. We fought, and my stepmother couldn't pull us apart. When Dad came back, he slapped me without a word, turning my head to the side. Look, you scratched your sister's face. I stormed out, running to find Kevin at his tattoo shop. I kept my head down. He came over and ruffled my hair. Why are your eyes so red? Who did you fight with? No one. I just fell. But he brought over a first aid kit, gently treating my wounds with his tattooed fingers. Whoever's bothering you, just tell me. I couldn't hold back anymore and threw myself into his arms, sobbing. His black shirt got soaked from my tears. Normally, he kept a polite distance, but that time, he didn't push me away. He gently patted my back. Eventually, I fell asleep in his arms. It was the warmest embrace I'd felt since my mother left. I hopelessly fell in love with him. Of course, it was just a secret crush. He looked cool and distant, but he was kinder than anyone I'd ever known. Chapter 11. Elsewhere. My sister posted a tweet. The photo showed a pot of savory bone congee and chicken soup on a hospital bed. Captioned, "With you here, I always feel safe." In the background, a hand could be seen. Christian's. He had spent 2 days at the hospital with her. I didn't want to think about it anymore. Silently, I went home to pack up and prepare to leave. When I was almost done packing, Christian returned. Whenever I used to look into his eyes, I'd always smile gently. Now, I couldn't even be bothered to look up. I treated him like air. Suddenly, Christian grabbed my hand. Jessica, let's talk. About what? Did you decide on that wedding dress? No, our wedding. Seeing him hesitate, I finished the thought for him. All right, let's not get married. Let's cancel. My decisiveness stunned him. Cancel? I didn't say we wouldn't get married. I was just saying maybe we could postpone it for a week or so. You didn't say it. So I will. No need to postpone. Let's just call it off. It'll be better for both of us. I walked into the room, dragging my packed suitcase, ready to leave. He frowned at my suitcase. Why are you packing? Don't pretend. I said with a smile. First love is indeed powerful. I understand that. Go find your dear sister. His eyes widened. Did you see my answer on Quora? Yes, I did. It was well written, but not as well as mine. He seemed drained, as if his soul had left his body. He opened his mouth but couldn't speak, then looked down with a guilty expression. I'm sorry. I don't know how to explain. I really can't forget your sister. She was my first love, the first person I ever loved deeply. But back then, she thought I was too young, too immature. Now that you know, I wasn't interested in hearing his confession. Well, now she's divorced. You can go rekindle your romance. I support it. I didn't bother telling him the truth. Helen didn't think he was too young. She thought he wasn't wealthy enough. He's luckier than me. At least his first love is still alive. With that, I dragged my suitcase out the door. Christian didn't follow me, just as I hoped. It would have been a hassle if he had. Chapter 12. By now, the sky had grown dim. I pulled my suitcase through the gates of the apartment complex, Jessica, come here. My heart skipped a beat, and I looked up. Kevin was standing beneath a tree. My nose tingled, and I couldn't help but quicken my pace toward him. Kevin, under the dim streetlight, he wore a thin black jacket, a cigarette burning faintly between his fingers. Behind him, the neon lights of the city glowed, dazzling and bright. He smiled, a hint of mischief in his expression. I tell you to come over, and you come over. Aren't you afraid I'll kidnap you? I'm not afraid. Take me away, please. Give me your suitcase. Just then, a car rushed by, and Kevin's figure disappeared as if blown away in an instant. The smile froze on my lips, and I looked around in a daze, desperately searching for him. Kevin. Fallen autumn leaves fluttered around. How could I ever find him again? It was just an illusion. For a moment, I really thought he'd come to pick me up. At that moment, a car pulled up by the roadside, and my sister stepped out, looking much more refreshed than before. Seeing me in tears, she walked over in surprise. Oh, crying so hard? What happened? Trouble in paradise before the wedding? Don't tell me it's because of me. I turned away, wiping my eyes. Don't overthink. How's your health? I'm fine now. All thanks to my brother-in-law's attentive care these past few days. He made all kinds of nutritious meals. You'll be lucky to marry him. I nodded. All right. That good fortune is all yours. Her expression shifted. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to provoke me since I just got divorced? Don't overthink it. You're his first love. He's head over heels for you. Go be with him. Clearing things up now was the best thing I could do. No point in getting dragged into their twisted drama. I waved down an approaching taxi. Honestly, Jessica, you don't have to go out of your way to mock me, she said loudly from behind me. Really? She called that mocking? I don't need you giving me any blessings. Do you understand? All I have to do is stand there, and Christian will love me. I don't even have to try. I glanced at her calmly. Then, as your little sister, I'll wish you a happy second marriage in advance. I smiled and got into the taxi. It was like punching into cotton. All her strength was useless. Chapter 13. Outside the window, the scenery sped by, lights blending and shifting. The taxi driver was playing an old song. Noticing my mood, he tried to start a conversation. Young lady, they say if you listen to this song 1,000 times, you might just go back to the past. Is that so? Do you believe that? In this life, you have to believe in something. That's what gives you strength to keep going. Why not give it a try? All right, I'll listen to it when I get home. But in reality, I'd already listened to it nearly 2,000 times. More than anyone, I wanted to go back to a time when Kevin was still around. Back to our first encounter. Chapter 13. Back then, after my stepmother moved in, I became an outsider in my own home. After school, I'd wander around aimlessly, avoiding going back. That's how I stumbled upon Kevin's tattoo shop one day. It was tucked away in a quiet corner, with a sign that read Old Alley. 2 entire walls were lined with shelves filled with thick, worn books, old magazines, and picture books. A few small, round wooden tables dotted the space. At first, I thought it was a study-friendly little bookstore. I took a seat by the window, pulled out a workbook, and quietly began doing exercises. Not long after, a burly man, shirtless with a chest tattoo, walked out. I jumped up in surprise. Don't be scared, little miss. I'm a good guy, he said, quickly covering his chest. Hey, put on a shirt. You're done. A calm, magnetic voice said from behind him. A t-shirt flew over and landed on the guy's head. The man who came out next was tall, with a black t-shirt stretched across broad shoulders. His expression was cool but striking. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, I stammered, quickly gathering my things to leave, only to have him block my way. Hey, little one, did you misunderstand something? I won't tell anyone. No need to explain. The man chuckled softly. This is a legitimate tattoo shop. What do you think is going on? Meeting his gaze, I felt my heart skip a beat. All right, maybe I overreacted, I admitted, looking around. In that case, can you give me a tattoo? Something that'll make me look tougher. You? He looked me up and down, smirking. Sorry. We don't tattoo minors. Fine. Then can I stay here for a bit? Suit yourself. I was still inexperienced with people like him, so I introduced myself awkwardly. I'm Jessica. Nice to meet you, Jessica. Later, I found out his name was Kevin, and that he was 7 years older than me, not only the owner of Old Alley but also an artist who had held his own exhibitions. He joked that he was just a half-baked artist. Every time I thought of how we first met, I couldn't help but smile, and after the laughter, there was always a sharp ache. Chapter 14. After parting ways with Christian, I didn't go back to my dad's big house. If Dad knew, he'd go on about this or that. I couldn't be bothered to explain all the twisted details. Besides, Helen would probably jump at the chance to tell him. She might see her divorce as shameful. So naturally, she'd be eager to spread word of my canceled wedding to avoid being the only one with a failed relationship. I went to stay with my best friend, Elise. She'd been my college roommate and close friend. When we met, she gave me a big hug. Jessie, just rest tonight. Tomorrow, I'll take you out to relax. Let's not think about any of this, all right? I'm fine. I just feel like the past 2 years were a waste of time. Turns out I'd been looking for the wrong person all along. Exactly. When Elise hadn't known why I was with Christian, she'd always felt that Christian didn't love me deeply. He was hot and cold, never quite like a real boyfriend. But I hadn't loved Christian deeply, either. My heart had always belonged to Kevin. I'd hoped he'd look at me with those eyes, just a little more, so I could imagine he was still here, watching over me. That way, it hurt a little less. What a fool I am. Chapter 15. The next evening, Elise took me to her family's bar. The lights were dim, neon hues shifting and dancing, music, voices, and the crisp clink of glasses all blended together. Kevin had never liked me drinking. I had always listened to him. After he left, I barely touched alcohol for years. But now, I wanted a drink. That fleeting vision of him last night was too sweet to resist. Chapter 16. Not long after, someone grabbed my wrist from behind. Jessica, stop drinking. I turned around to see Christian, his brows knitted in a frown as he looked at me. I pulled my hand away, my expression cooling. What does that have to do with you, Jessica? I know seeing my answer on Quora must have hurt you, but you don't need to come here and drown yourself in alcohol. The more he spoke, the more annoyed I became. I had no patience left for him. It's none of your business what I do. Didn't I already give you and your first love my blessing? Stop bothering me. You're nothing but trash. His eyes widened in disbelief. I had always spoken to him gently, never using harsh words, let alone insults. He had never seen me like this, but that gentleness was never really meant for him. I wanted Kevin's eyes to see me as gentle, living well, and happy. Chapter 17. Stop drinking. Look at yourself, Christian said, snatching my glass and slamming it onto the table. This isn't like you at all. Just then, Elise emerged from the dance floor, positioning herself between Christian and me. Helen joined us, looping her arm through Christian's. Christian, what are you worried about? Jessie used to hang out with some rough crowds in high school. Her drinking skills are top-notch. I laughed but didn't deny it. Yes, Christian sighed. Jessica, can't we go home and talk this out? There's no need for things to be so tense. I said, I won't be going back there again. I wish you both happiness. Elise added, Christian, isn't your first love already in your arms? What more do you want with Jessie? She's given you her blessing. I hope you two stay together forever. Have a happy marriage, and lots of kids. I didn't mean. I just wanted to talk to Jessica. Helen interjected. He came here with me, saw you drinking too much, and thought to check on you. If you don't appreciate it, fine. She was searching my face, looking for signs of pain, but all she saw was cold indifference. I don't need anyone's concern. Helen rubbed her temples. Christian, my head hurts. The music here is giving me a headache. Christian immediately turned his attention to her, full of concern. She's still recovering. I'll take her home first. We'll talk later. Watching their retreating figures, Elise muttered, he probably thought you were drinking here because you're still hung up on him. Maybe it's weighing on his conscience. I patted Elisa's shoulder. I don't have any real feelings for him. I'd simply found the wrong person. Did I ever care for him? Not even a little. Next to me, a young girl answered her phone, pouting playfully. Okay. I'll be home soon. Why are you always so worried about me? Watching her, I remembered that one night in my 3rd year of college. I had gone with Elise to her family's bar to celebrate her birthday, and I ended up drunk. Kevin had come to pick me up. He carried me into the car, then back home, and as a kind of playful punishment, held me down and kissed me for ages. The next morning, I woke up with swollen lips. I asked him what happened to my mouth. Kevin teased me. You drank too much. You must be allergic. I don't believe you. Don't think I don't know you kissed me. You brute. He laughed. Me? A brute? I tried to shove him, but he grabbed my wrists, pulling me into his arms. A brute? Who told you to drink so much? Don't you know how dangerous that is? It's Elisa's family bar. How could it be dangerous? Before I could finish, he held my chin and kissed me again. From now on, no drinking, not unless I'm with you. Someone bumped into my shoulder, jolting me from my memories. He was gone again. Elise looked at me with concern. Jessie, are you okay? Oh, I'm fine. Just thinking about something from the past. It's been a while. Maybe it's time to move forward. I clinked my glass with hers. I already have. Elise didn't say anything, just sighed. Last night, she'd woken up to get some water and had seen me silently crying in my sleep. Then, what would you like for your birthday? Let's go somewhere nice. I looked down. I don't have a birthday. I sprang out of a rock. Chapter 18. Not long after, my dad called. He'd mellowed out with age and spoke more gently now. Jessie, what's going on between you and Christian? He told me you aren't answering his calls and want to cancel the wedding. Wasn't it supposed to be next week? Helen probably already told you. Christian and I aren't getting married. Not getting married? We already sent out the invitations. Booked the hotel. How can you just cancel? Isn't it simple? Just change the bride's name to Helen. After all, he got close to me to be with Helen, so he could protect her as family. His tone grew angrier. Christian, what's going on here? I hadn't realized Christian was right there with him. Sir, it's not like that. I did intend to marry Jessie, but we ran into some issues. Helen's voice suddenly chimed in. It's my fault. Christian was my boyfriend first, and he never got over me. And now that I'm divorced, you're all just ridiculous. How could you treat Jessie like this? My dad's voice was furious. Christian replied, sounding resolute. I'm sorry, sir. I'll find a way to make it up to Jessie. I hope you can understand. Hearing this, I felt a strange relief. My dad said, do whatever you want, but I won't be attending. Then Helen added, Dad, about that villa in the countryside. Don't call me Dad. I never accepted you as my daughter. I only have one daughter, and that's Jessie. I heard the sound of a glass breaking. My dad's calm demeanor had vanished. He was angry, and it was because of me. For a moment, I felt deeply touched. A few years ago, my stepmother had fallen into gambling, losing a lot of money. My dad's affection for her had long faded, and Helen wasn't even her biological daughter. Then my dad added, that villa was bought in Jessie's name 4 years ago. Neither of you should even think about it. Dad, don't be upset. They're a match made in heaven. His voice softened. Where are you, sweetheart? I'll come find you. There's no need. I'm all right. Don't worry about me. I hung up. Soon, Christian's wedding invitations went out with Helen listed as the bride. Relatives, always eager for gossip, messaged me to ask what happened. I replied the same way every time, don't ask. They're truly meant for each other. Whatever my dad said afterward, they all told me they wouldn't be attending the wedding. Chapter 19. I spent each day at Elisa's place, sketching and painting. One day, she came home from work and asked, have you heard from Christian? No. Then you probably don't know that he's been coming to our family's bar every night, drinking himself into a stupor, worse than the last time he got drunk after proposing to you. Must be from all the excitement, getting to marry his first love. I could only feel envious of him. It's not that. I heard him calling your name. Elise checked Christian's Quora answer. He had updated it with a new note yesterday. My fiancé saw my answer and called off the wedding, saying she wanted me and her sister to be together. At first, I felt a little guilty, but then there was this rush of excitement. I'd finally be with the sister I'd longed for. But a few days later, I realized, after all these years, my sister doesn't seem like the person I once knew. I remember her as so kind and understanding, but now she spends every day criticizing my ex-fiancé, acting so sharp and mean. The more she disparages her, the more I remember how good my ex-fiancé was to me. What's wrong with me? I should be happy, shouldn't I? The comments were brutal. Good thing your fiancé figured it out and dumped you before you could ruin her life. Reality is stranger than fiction. Men really are something else. Looks like your first love isn't so special now that you actually have her. Huh? This guy is pathetic. None of it mattered to me. I didn't care about Christian's thoughts, nor did I want to understand his mixed feelings. I just wanted us to stay out of each other's lives because he wouldn't get even a glance from me. That night, an unknown number called my phone. Jessica, it's me. Can we meet? I'm sorry, but there's really no need for us to stay in touch. Christian replied. Then could we at least talk on the phone? I'm really conflicted. I thought I'd be happy to marry her, but I'm sorry. I'm not a relationship counselor. I can't help you with your issues. Maybe you should call someone else. Chapter 20. I went back to the street where Old Alley used to be. The area had changed, with new shops I'd never seen before. I walked around, hesitating to step into that street. I was afraid the memories would overwhelm me like a tide. I took a few photos, then I posted on Twitter. I'll always remember the first time I met you here. I was 16. Before long, Christian had commented, "How did you know I lived around here in high school?" I replied, "I didn't. Just a coincidence." Then I deleted his contact information. When I met Christian, I'd already graduated from college. I'd never looked into his past, nor had I any interest in it. If I remembered correctly, tomorrow was the day he and my sister were supposed to get married. Yet here he was, leaving comments on my tweets. He must have plenty of free time. Chapter 21. Every turn on the way to Old Alley triggered memories. Even the faded black street lamp at the corner held fragments of my memories with him. I'd always hired someone to clean Old Alley regularly, keeping it as it was. In that first winter after he left, I'd sat on the sofa we'd picked out together, crying through the night until I fell asleep, drifting through each day in a haze. I'd hoped that, when I woke up, it would all be a bad dream, that he would still hold me close. Now, standing at the entrance to the street, I hesitated to step in. Just then, someone called my name from behind. Jessica! Christian was there, breathless. "I finally found you." I frowned. "Why are you here?" "I saw your tweet. I never realized you've been interested in me since high school." "What?" "Just now, during the vows, I finally realized that it's you I love. Come back with me. Let's get married. I'll prove my love to you." I laughed. "Me? Interested in you? You must be dreaming, but I used to live nearby. And when you mentioned our first meeting here, wasn't that about me?" "No, I never loved you. I was with you only because." At that moment, footsteps and voices approached from behind. My sister stumbled toward us, her veil askew, barefoot and disheveled. "Christian, I left my husband for you, and now you're abandoning me for her?" Christian looked at her, his expression turning cold. "Sister, last night your ex-husband told me how you used to brag to your friends about dumping me because I was poor, that I was pathetically devoted to you. I finally realized you left me with no real reason at all." "That's not true. You know how my ex-husband is. How could you believe him?" "He sent me a recording." "It's you." The color drained from her face. I watched the scene unfold, arms crossed, detached, like watching a play. Christian turned to me. "Jessica, please forgive me this time." Chapter 22. I looked at Christian and said, "Give me your phone." He immediately handed it over. "Don't worry. I've already deleted my Quora answer." It's fine if you deleted yours. I just want you to see that the top-rated answer under that question is mine. Read it for yourself. The top-rated one? Yes. Christian quickly scrolled to the answer, his eyes widening with each line. You're saying, I received the cornea donation from your deceased boyfriend? That you were with me because you thought I was a substitute. Finishing what he couldn't? But that's impossible. I had an accident. Yes. But I never received a cornea transplant. You're lying, aren't you? I'm not lying. I only found out recently. I had the wrong person. No, it can't be. You were always so kind to me. He looked stricken, still unwilling to accept the truth, and reached out to embrace me. I stepped back to avoid him. Chapter 23. I shook my head and turned, walking forward. I unlocked the door of the long-closed old alley and stepped inside. Dust hung in the beams of light, and the old photos on the wall came into view. They were pictures of Kevin and me. Some were casual shots taken at home, while others were from our travels. Though Kevin claimed to hate photos, whenever I suggested a selfie, he'd stand right next to me, his hand naturally resting on my shoulder. He'd even put our photos on the walls of Old Alley. He wanted everyone to know I was in his life. His hand was always on my shoulder, his gaze always gently resting on me. Behind me, Helen's voice broke the silence. She was hanging out with the tattoo shop owner back in high school. She never loved you, she said, turning to Christian. You've been played. Christian, let's go back and get married. Didn't you say you couldn't get over me? Christian's face contorted as he looked at the photos on the wall. His jaw clenched, and he muttered, so all this time, it was for another man. I simply replied, now you understand. Take a good look, then leave. Helen's voice rose, sharp and shrill. That so-called tattoo artist was just a thug. How could he ever compare to Christian? I walked over and slapped her hard on both cheeks. Take that foul mouth of yours and get out. Helen started to lunge at me, but Christian held her back. Leave us alone. I need to talk to her alone. Christian turned to me, his voice cracking. You were so kind to me, but you never let me close. Was it all because of this man? Did you ever love me? No. Enough. Christian. Kevin hated people causing a ruckus in his shop. Just like I said in that answer, I never intended to marry you. I just wanted Kevin to see me in a wedding dress. Everything else was meaningless. I was never really going to marry Christian. Now, leave. Chapter 24. In the end, I drove them both away. The scene finally drew to a close. The silence around me was deafening, every tick of the clock echoing through the room. Everything Kevin and I had said and done here replayed vividly in my mind. Kevin, can we get a new sofa? This color is so tacky. Sure. What color do you want? Sky blue. That's a little tacky, don't you think? Despite saying so, he got me a sky blue sofa. Even though the color clashed with Old Alley's dark decor, I moved all my things into the shop. I planned to stay here for a while. Later, a mutual friend told me that after Christian left her at the altar, Helen's grand, lavish wedding became a disaster, with her ex-husband even showing up to cause trouble. I couldn't care less about any of them. They were all nothing compared to my Kevin. Chapter 25. Today was a beautiful day. I curled up on the sofa. Before I knew it, I had drifted off. The curtains swayed in the breeze, and the clock ticked steadily. It felt like time had rewound to that summer. It was like discovering a hidden treasure, knowing I'd never have to drift aimlessly again, spending every day at Kevin's Old Alley. I'd bring my workbooks and notes, spreading them out on a little table and doing homework there. I didn't fit into the artsy atmosphere, but I didn't care. People from all walks of life came through those doors. Once, a man joked, "Hey, is this Kevin's little wife? She's here every day." In the next instant, Kevin kicked his stool out from under him. "Didn't you see she's in a school uniform? Just a joke. One more word, and I'll throw you out." I joined in. "Kevin, I'll help you kick him out." He chuckled. "Good girl." Those days were some of my happiest. Later, when Kevin found out about the slap my dad had given me after my fight with Helen, he comforted me and held me close for the first time. Not long after that, Helen and her bully boyfriend from high school got put in their place by some people. She couldn't even put on her usual tough act at school anymore. She stopped trying to mess with me, and I didn't have to yell at her every day at home. I didn't know exactly what happened, but I didn't need to. I was certain Kevin had intervened for me. Chapter 26. One day, Helen's attitude toward me changed. I wasn't sure what her angle was. I hadn't expected her to follow me to Old Alley. She clung to my arm, pretending we were close. "Hey, can you ask your friend to give me a unique tattoo on my upper thigh?" I pulled my arm away, feeling disgusted. "He doesn't tattoo minors," Helen rushed to say. I repeated a grade. "I'm 18 now." Kevin glanced at her coldly. "For you, it doesn't matter if you're of age." "I'm not interested." Helen wouldn't give up. "I'll pay triple. Will that do?" Kevin only said, "Get out." Then he kicked her out of the shop. In my eyes, he looked incredibly cool at that moment. Helen shouted, "Don't think I don't know you've been with Jessica. That's why you're so nice to her." The next second, she got slapped hard. It was Kevin's older sister. My brother can't hit a woman, so I will. She knew me too, though she didn't come around often. She had always been kind to me. Helen slinked off, tail between her legs. Chapter 27. One time, I was so tired that I fell asleep on the table while doing homework. When I woke up, Kevin's jacket was draped over me, and it was already dark. He had cooked me a bowl of noodles, holding the bowl in his right hand, his veins visible against his pale, tattooed skin. The sight was irresistible. "Smells so good." "Thanks, Kevin." "Eat up, then go home." While I slurped my noodles, he sat nearby, sketching. In the dim light, I glanced at his profile, my heart fluttering with each stolen glance. After finishing, I asked, "Can I sleep here tonight?" He narrowed his eyes dangerously. I can pay." After my dad slapped me, he hadn't said much, but he had deposited a lot of money into my account, probably out of guilt. I hadn't been downstairs to eat with the family in days. "Even if you paid, it's still a no." "You think I need your money?" He turned me down without a second thought. I protested. "Last time I fought with my sister, you let me stay over. Why not this time?" "Last time was different," he said, picking me up. "You're a young girl. You shouldn't get used to staying over at strange men's houses." In the end, he took me home. Before he left, he patted my head. "Don't worry. If she bullies you again, let me know." When I went upstairs, I looked out the window and saw him still standing there, half hidden in the shadows, cigarette glowing faintly in his fingers, looking achingly lonely. I secretly took a photo of him. Sometimes, I'd pull it out just to look at it and smile like a fool. Helen, for whatever reason, never told my dad I was always at Kevin's shop. She thought Kevin would corrupt me, but he never gave me a chance to go astray. On my 18th birthday in senior year, he gave me a set of practice exams instead. Not romantic at all. Chapter 28. As schoolwork got heavier, I visited his shop less often. After a major exam, I went back, only to find the tattoo shop bustling with trendy, beautiful girls. I suddenly regretted not dressing up a bit. Apparently, a popular influencer had done a feature on his shop, attracting a flood of new visitors. Some were genuinely there for tattoos, but many were just drawn to him, his effortless cool in a simple black t-shirt that somehow made it impossible to look away. When people saw me, they whispered, "Isn't she that sister Kevin took in?" I had never hated the word sister as much as I did at that moment. "Where's Kevin?" He came out, his hair a bit longer, falling loosely over his eyebrows. He gave me that crooked, teasing smile. "Well, look who it is, Jessica." I thought the star student forgot all about me. "Just wanted to see how you're doing. Didn't realize you're living the good life." Yep, he didn't deny it. I felt a pang of jealousy. While I was there, a few girls approached, trying to get close. "So, you're his sister? Could you maybe get me his WeChat? I'll send you a red envelope if you can." I muttered. "No." He said he's not dating anyone until he's 30. The girls calmed down but still tried flirting, one after another. They all left looking disappointed. "He's so cold. He doesn't even make small talk." I tried to act nonchalant. He's always nice to me. Well, that's different. He already told us you're his sister. I'm not his sister. But when I turned around, I found Kevin watching me, half amused. I fell silent, pretending to focus on my workbook, scribbling furiously. My heart was racing, and I didn't dare look up. He stopped beside me. Hey, you're supposed to be doing English, so why are you scribbling math formulas? I bluffed. Mind your own business. Chapter 29. It was late, and the shop had quieted down. The wind chimes tinkling softly, echoing in my heart. The glass turned into a mirror, and I stole glances at him, pretending to look outside, catching his reflection. After the last customer left, I took a deep breath and asked, Kevin, can I ask you something? Go ahead. What kind of girl do you like? Haven't really thought about it. Just someone I connect with, I guess. I gathered my courage and stared into his eyes, my face red, staring as boldly as I could. He raised an eyebrow, his gaze playfully lingering on me, making my ears burn. So, do you think there might be a tiny spark with me? Kevin let out a breath of laughter. Aren't you still a high schooler? What do you know about love? I know. Why wouldn't I? So, who's been telling people that I'm not dating anyone before 30? Only because I'm worried that you'll get snatched up by someone else. I mumbled, voice fading. Don't fall for me. If you don't focus on your studies, don't come here anymore. After a long pause, I managed. You're so old-fashioned. Fine. I'll stay away for real. I started packing my things, fighting back tears that still slipped out despite my efforts. Kevin looked momentarily startled and quickly handed me a tissue. Come on, don't cry. Let's talk about this after you finish your college entrance exams, okay? Chapter 30. His words fueled me, filling each day with determination as I prepared for exams. The moment I got my acceptance letter, I rushed to see him. It was late by the time he was free. We celebrated on his rooftop with a small barbecue. Kevin still wouldn't let me drink, but I insisted and managed to get through half a can of beer, just enough for a bit of liquid courage. Then, pretending to be tipsy, I confessed again, Kevin, if you don't become my boyfriend now, some guy at college might steal me away. Aren't you worried? He stubbed out his cigarette, leaning back. You dare try it? Do you, or don't you, want me? He took hold of my wrist, and the next thing I knew, I was sitting on his lap, my heart pounding. Are you sure about this? You'll be far away for college. Would you want a boyfriend you barely get to see? I'd been in love with him for so long. How could I not be sure? I don't care. I want you. Only you. He chuckled softly against my shoulder, his fingers brushing my ear. Your ears are so red. So cute. I was mortified. Stop it. Are you saying yes or no? Kevin leaned in, pressing his lips softly to mine. I'm saying yes. That night's kiss, under that starry sky, I'll remember it forever. And we took our first photo together. Chapter 31. That summer after my senior year was the happiest time of my life. We watched sunsets from Old Alley, hunted for old film DVDs in nearby stores, drove to the beach, and ran together in the waves, him carrying me on his back, sweet watermelons, endless cicada songs, and his gentle presence, all woven into the most vibrant summer. I'd already made up my mind to visit him in Sea City as often as possible during college. It was only a 2-hour trip, but I soon realized it wasn't necessary. Kevin would drive up to see me, and we'd meet several times a month. He never missed anything important. I loved being in his arms, so warm, so safe. During breaks, or on holidays, he'd take me to all the places I dreamed of seeing. At first, my friends thought he looked like a playboy, but as years passed, they started calling him the perfect boyfriend. Once, I got sick and had to go to the hospital in the middle of the night. Kevin drove down immediately, showing up exhausted, his eyes red, staying by my side and holding my hand without letting go. That was when my dad found out about us. At first, seeing his tattoos and unique vibe, Dad tried to lecture me in private. But after Kevin talked to him, my dad didn't object anymore. Before leaving, my dad even apologized for the slap he'd given me during my teenage years. He said it was because he was afraid my stepmom would target me, that the slap was for show, and he hoped I didn't hold it against him. Kevin had a tattoo over his left chest, a striking bow intertwined with my name. Mine was a beautiful arrow, designed by him, symbolizing that I'd pierced his heart. Kevin was the absolute best. But how I hated that but. If only there was no but. Chapter 32. In my senior year, on my birthday, it wasn't a weekend, and I had an internship that day, but Kevin had driven all the way from C-City. When I went downstairs, there he was, waiting outside my dorm in the early winter morning. The campus had a dusting of snow from the night before, blanketing the ground in patches. Kevin stood there in a black coat, wrapped in the white scarf I had knitted for him. I had stitched the character at the end as a personal touch. When he saw me, his usually calm face softened into a gentle smile. He kissed my forehead. He pressed a warm breakfast into my hands. Be good. Don't let yourself get distracted at work today. He promised to take me to dinner that night to celebrate. That entire day, I was overjoyed, working hard and sneaking texts to Kevin whenever I could. He said he'd take care of everything for my birthday, covering all the expenses, inviting my friends, and making sure I'd have fun. Before I left work, Kevin messaged me, "I'm picking up the cake. Wait for me downstairs at your office." But I waited and waited, and he didn't show up. Winter nights fell quickly, and the streetlights flickered on one by one. I breathed into my hands to keep warm, sending him messages he didn't respond to. Is the cake taking a while? Which bakery are you at? Send me your location. I'll come find you. I got no reply. I searched for nearby bakeries and followed the map. On the way, I overheard passersby talking about a severe accident nearby. A drunk driver had run a red light, lost control, and crashed into pedestrians before slamming into a bakery, shattering the glass. A terrible sense of dread flooded me. I called him again, but there was no answer. When I arrived, the area was cordoned off. I pushed through the crowd only to see a blood-stained white scarf on the ground, the one I had knitted. The name Jessica, which I'd stitched so carefully, was blurred by blood. Cake and frosting were scattered across the pavement, and in that instant, my heart felt shattered beyond repair. The world spun. Kevin was taken away in an ambulance. I stumbled over to an officer to find out which hospital. The First People's Hospital. All right, I'll head there right away. In the taxi, my phone rang. It was Kevin. With shaking hands, I finally managed to answer. Kevin, are you all right? His soft, raspy voice came through the line. I dropped the scarf you gave me. Through tears, I told him, "It's with me. I have it right here." Good. Don't cry. You'll get a headache if you cry too long. And Jessica, happy birthday. I'm almost at the hospital. I want to hear you say that to me in person. It doesn't count if you say it over the phone. But in the end, those 3 sentences became the last words I ever heard from him. The man I loved more than anyone died on my birthday. Kevin, Kevin, Kevin. No matter how many times I call his name, I'll never hear his voice again. After that, the only traces of him left were the voice messages in our chat, which I couldn't bear to delete. I don't know how I survived those days. I only know that after he left, my world lost all its color. I had never hated myself more. If I hadn't met him, if we hadn't fallen in love, if he hadn't come to celebrate my birthday, he would have never been in that accident. He would still be alive. I never want to celebrate another birthday again. I just want him safe. Chapter 33. That dazzling summer when we met ended with a winter funeral. A piece of my heart was torn away. The last New Year we spent together, we made wishes by the river. I asked him, "What did you wish for?" The first thing is that someday I'll get to see you in a wedding dress. The second is that Kevin promises to love Jessica forever. I'll definitely wear a wedding dress for you one day, but I've never seen you in a suit. I really want to see that. You'll graduate next year, right? I'll wear a suit. Come take your graduation photos with you, and go to your ceremony. How about that? Perfect. But in the end, I never got to wear that dress for him, and he never wore that suit. I wished more than anything that this was just a bad dream. Kevin, since you left, I haven't celebrated a birthday. I hate that day. You'd ordered a cake and left a small envelope with a card inside. I hadn't been able to bring myself to open it, hoping that as long as I didn't, you could still be here, still wishing me a happy birthday. Finally, I opened the envelope. Inside was a card, now slightly yellowed. Happy 22nd birthday. My love. Just so you know, I've decided to move to Sea City permanently. I'm already looking for a place, so you can feel free to settle down there after graduation. Kevin loves you. I whispered softly to the air. I love you too. The wind chimes tinkled in response, as if he'd answered. Chapter 34. I blocked all of Christian's contacts. He came to Old Alley, asking if we could both leave the past behind and start over. I had only one thing to say to him: leave me alone. Then I turned and went inside, choosing to stay forever in my memories, in the world where Kevin still existed. As he tried to follow, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut, leaving him outside. The autumn air was thick, and a fallen leaf drifted through the window. It landed near the last drawer of the back shelf. Trying to preserve things as they were, I rarely touched these cabinets, but something about that leaf seemed to guide me. So I pulled open the drawer. Inside was a small box. It held a diamond ring. Kevin's sister had told me once that he'd planned to propose the year I graduated. Chapter 35, Epilogue. I'm a student from the area. Walking down an old street, I discovered a tattoo shop called Old Alley. The owner is a beautiful woman with the surname Liu. She's the kind of gorgeous, mature woman I've always wanted to be. She has long, thick black hair, but her gaze is distant, keeping everyone at arm's length. On the photo wall, there's a picture of her with a handsome man. In one photo, I saw her at 18. On a rooftop, her youthful face beams with a shy smile as she tilts her head toward the man next to her. His hand rests on her shoulder. Curious, I asked her, Miss Liu, is that your boyfriend? She gently touched the ring on her finger and smiled. No, he's my husband.